This one hit differently, man. Right now, Chicago's streets are in grief, and Lil Durk is receiving some of the worst news of his life while he sits in federal detention. One of F's day one hitters and one of his most devoted warriors, THF Bayzoo, was clapped up in broad daylight on the west side of Chicago. Social media sources claim that Zoo was at a junkyard gathering auto parts when a car pulled up, 2 idiots got out, and he and 2 other persons were shot at. Following a shooting, 3 men are in the hospital. This occurred in St. Louis at approximately 3 p.m. today, close to 31st. 3 blows were delivered to Bayzoo, including one to the chest from a 7. Draco, round 62. According to tribute posts from his closest friends, including Duty Low, CEO Big 30, and Pooh Shiesty. He didn't make it after being taken to the hospital in severe condition and losing too much blood from his torso wounds. Family, this isn't your typical Chicago drill tale. As Lil Durk is imprisoned in a jail fighting for his life, this is about loyalty, fraternity, and how everything he built is falling apart. Let's begin. THF Bayzoo was who? We got to know THF Bayzoo before we showed how Durks responded to this heartbreaking news. Because the entire THF and FF family is being devastated by this loss, it's not just affecting Durk. THF 46's leader was THF Bayzoo. Not merely a participant, but the real boss in charge of things. One of the most violent sets on Chicago's South Side was led by this man. Trigger Happy Family, or THF 46, is in charge of the 46th and Drexel neighborhood in North Kenwood. We are discussing a hybrid gang type, where Mickey Cobras and Black Disciples have united under a single flag. Bayzoo was also making the decisions. Here's what sets Zoo apart from many of these other guys, though. Man was consciously trying to overcome a truly violent past. In the past, Bayzoo was linked to several bodies. At one time, he was even charged with murder, but he won the case in court. Man was actually leading such a barbaric existence. No cap. Unlike other rappers, he didn't pretend to be a thug for the cameras. The whole city knew that Bayzoo was real. THF has been engaged in combat with Brick Squad, Jero City 757, STL EBT, and Indiro 51 Young Money. However, they also formed strong coalitions. Block 600 and above all, OTF. That's where Bayzoo and Lil Durk became closer. These were not superficial associations with rap. After years of living in the same trenches, these were true street bonds. However, this is when Bayzoo's tale takes a significant turn. After being released from prison in 2018, the man's life was totally changed. In the same year, Bayzoo and King Von both converted to Islam, according to his interview with No Jumper. They were sincerely attempting to change their life, took their shahada seriously, and began to practice the faith. Converting to Islam was a significant spiritual change for someone who had spent so much time living that brutal street life. Zoo was making a concerted effort to improve and move past that damaging history. He continued to rep THF vigorously. He continued to conduct business as needed. But on the inside, Bayzoo's religion was helping him grow as a person. This death is all the more tragic because of that. Even though he was actively attempting to live a moral life and was on a path of true transformation, he was nonetheless taken by the streets. The current reality of Lil Durk. We now have to look at what Durk is going through at the moment in order to see why Bayzoo's death is emotionally ruining him. Because this man is going through the worst time of his life. Family. When Lil Durk tried to board a private plane to Italy on October 24, 2024, the federal government detained him at a Miami airport. For planning a hit on Quando Rondo in 2022 that resulted in the death of Rondo's cousin Lulu Pab, they charged him with conspiracy to commit murder for hire. We're discussing the possibility of spending time in a federal prison. Family. The man who was working with Drake and Jay, getting Grammys and dominating the charts. Cole now has to deal with the very real prospect of never being free again. Durk wasn't the only one. On the same day, 5 further members were detained concurrently by the federal authorities. The entire crew faces the prospect of decades in prison and federal indictments. Banking records, airline manifests, surveillance footage, witness testimony, and more were all used by the FBI to construct their case. They assert that Durk paid for all of the operation's expenses, including hotels, flights, and car rentals. If the prosecution's account stands up in court, F is over as an organization. The devastation doesn't end there, though. Outside these walls, Durk's entire kingdom is imploding in real time while he is imprisoned in that cell, struggling for his escape. His assets were confiscated, his accounts were frozen, and his label arrangements were placed in total legal limbo by federal officials. The funding that kept F's whole business running was cut off. The enterprise he built from nothing over a 10-year period was crumbling daily. He's losing his day, one friend's on top of everything else that is destroying him. Behind jail, Durk heard that Bayzoo had been killed. Think about that, family. You already find yourself in the worst possible predicament, battling federal charges that could result in your permanent imprisonment. And then you receive word that one of your closest friends, one of your most faithful warriors, just got gunned down on the exact same streets you all grew up enduring alongside. A person is essentially transformed by that kind of cumulative sorrow. It's the kind of heartbreaking news that makes you reevaluate the course of your entire life. Duty lo huge 30 pushi for the tributes. Social media exploded when Bayzoo's death was announced. However, the condolences weren't posted by random individuals. His closest friends and relatives were the ones who knew him well and sincerely cared for him. Duty Lo, F member and Bayzoo's closest friend, shared a heartfelt remembrance on Instagram that went viral right away. For those who don't know, Duty Lo and Bayzoo have a long history together. Decades of friendship are at stake. They weren't merely crew members. Together, they made it through the trenches as real brothers. Duty Lo was one among the first to officially acknowledge Boo's passing. Because you could actually feel the raw sorrow pouring from every syllable, the post struck a distinct chord. In terms of social media involvement, this was not performative mourning. From someone who lost a brother, this was real sadness. The Memphis CEO of Big 30 then expressed his admiration. Now, Big 30 has a close relationship with the whole THF family. He showed how Zoo's influence truly extended beyond Chicago's boundaries when he blogged about Bayzoo. It wasn't only the mourning in the city, this was the whole southern rap scene, realizing that they had lost a real person. The tweet from Big 30 was succinct but highly impactful, demonstrating appropriate respect for a person who carried himself with dignity. Out on a halfway house, Pushy also paid respects and took into account Pooh's current legal struggles. He took the time to pay tribute to Bayzoo, which says a lot about Zoo's standing. The fact that rappers from various locations, settings, and legal circumstances came together to pay their respects says it all about the influence this individual had on society. But this is what is really bothering Lil Durk at the moment. There is absolutely nothing he can do. He is unable to go to the funeral. He is unable to accept Duty Lo at this terrible moment. He is unable to speak directly to his fans. On his personal Instagram, he is unable to post a tribute. Even dropping a suitcase and returning for his best pal is beyond his capabilities. As his friend's life is being honored and remembered without him present, he is imprisoned in a cell and utterly devoid of free will. Family, that's a particularly nasty kind of torment. Being confined while your people are dying outside, knowing that you are no longer able to provide them with physical support or protection. That's the mental nightmare Durk is currently living in. Boo's reason for returning to Chicago. Let's now examine the reasons behind Bayzoo's precarious situation. Street sources claim that Zoo's choice to return to Chicago and move weight wasn't made lightly. It was a matter of economic survival. You see, Lil Durk provided for his entire team while he was free and earning millions from his music career. Only the family was represented by that. Durk made sure his people had enough money. He was dispersing funds, buying vehicles, paying for legal services, and managing his entire team's rent and expenses. That support system was undoubtedly helping Bu, one of his closest day ones. Durk's prosperity shielded man from the dangers of street activities, but the whole banking system fell apart the moment the feds imprisoned Durk. The flow of funds ceased. Accounts were frozen by federal agents. They confiscated property. All of a sudden, the man who was keeping everyone alive was unable to assist anyone. and all of the members who relied on his kindness were abruptly left to face the hard realities of the economy by themselves. According to sources close to the issue, this is when Bayzoo made the calculated decision to return to Chicago and re-enter street operations. Rumor has it that he resumed his marijuana sales solely to make money to cover his expenses and get by on a daily basis. Now, one could wonder why he didn't simply find a traditional job, but you have to face the harsh truth, family. Securing standard employment isn't feasible when you're a well-known character from THF, have a reputation on the streets, and have lived that lifestyle for years. What organizations would hire someone with his recorded background, even if he pursued it? So he went back to his familiar surroundings. Transporting goods and making money through the street economy. Here's the crucial risk, though. You become a lot more susceptible after leaving the streets and then coming back later. Your adversaries still remember you. They understand that your level of protection has decreased. They consider you a prime target, particularly if they believe you are not operating with the same degree of security as before. At that junkyard, that's what took place. Boo was there scooping up car parts, whether for personal use or business. He probably had 2 more persons with him for security. However, someone was aware of his whereabouts. He was being actively watched. A patient person was waiting for this very moment to arrive. Why that took place, everyone is now requesting answers. What caused this to occur? Who planned it? And why was this degree of brutality committed? The initial assumption that has been put up is that this was a fatal drug deal. Perhaps Bayzoo was holding a business meeting at the junkyard if he was back to aggressively shifting weight. Perhaps the other side had deadly intentions from the beginning, but the transaction was supposed to be simple. Perhaps they intended to rob him. Perhaps there was an escalating financial disagreement. One of the leading causes of death in Chicago is violent drug deals. Thus, on the surface, this hypothesis makes sense. Here's what doesn't add up, though. Why would a Draco firing 7 be used? For a simple robbery, 62 rounds? That amount of destructive weapons implies that this went beyond simply stealing goods or money. That kind of weapon suggests something really personal and well thought out. The second idea, which is the one that the Chicago drill community is supporting the most, holds that this was direct revenge for the death of DMG Lil Scoom. You see, rapper DMG Lil Scoom was murdered in Chicago last month. He was well conceited. He was gaining traction in the scene, and many members of his circle began accusing THF members right once after his death. We're talking about overt social media posts, subtle musical allusions, street people publicly asserting that they knew who was behind it, and intense suspicion directed specifically at THF 46. Although I am unable to confirm it, there was a widespread belief in the streets that THF was responsible for Lil Scoom's death. Furthermore, the impression of street politics in Chicago may as well be a known fact. So, the conventional theory goes like this. Since September, DMG Lil Scoom's team had been planning attacks against THF members. They had been carefully awaiting the ideal moment while keeping an eye on movements. And they carried out their plan after learning that Bayzoo had returned to Chicago, that he was once more working on the streets, and that they realized he was in danger without F's complete protection. The extreme violence can be explained by this theory. This wasn't just any crime on the street. This was a well-planned move. THF is being broadcast a message, a violent settlement of a score. They brought that Draco with them for that reason. To make sure the job was done, they struck him 3 times. This view is also supported by the timing. Tensions were quite high even after DMG Lil Scoom's death, which was only about a month ago. If this argument is correct, then Bayzoo's death was caused by a feud that might not have been related to his own behavior. Because he represented THF, he was singled out. Since killing him would send a terrible message to his whole organization, his name carried a lot of weight. That's the harsh truth of street politics in Chicago. Situations you weren't even personally involved in can sometimes cause you to die. How this is being processed by Lil Durk. Let's now look at what Lil Durk is likely going through on an emotional level as he deals with the loss of one of his best buddies while he is confined to that federal holding cell. First, he is consumed by an intense sense of guilt. Durk is definitely blaming himself, even if he was confined at the time and didn't fire a trigger. Why? Because Bayzoo wouldn't have needed to go back to Chicago to sell goods if he hadn't been detained and money was still flowing smoothly. That junkyard is not where he would have been. He wouldn't have been vulnerable and exposed. Durk believed that his arrest was the direct cause of Bayzoo's death. Family. That kind of guilt is devastating to the mind. A person's spirit can be irreparably broken by that kind of self-blame. The oppressive seclusion comes in second. Durk is unable to grieve his friend's passing. He is unable to pay his last respects at the funeral. During this trauma, he is unable to be physically present for Duty Low or the rest of THF. He is unable to even publicly honor him on his own social media accounts. He has entirely cut himself off from the community and people with whom he has always had a close relationship. He is limited to reliving his experiences while sitting in that frigid cell. Think of all the hours they spent together and all the plans they had for the future that will never come to pass. The terrible knowledge of just how much he has lost comes in third. In addition to Bew, King Von passed away in 2020. Over the years, several homies have been killed. He is free. It's his empire. It is literally everything he has worked for and sacrificed. And making all of that loss worse. Now that he is facing significant federal accusations, he is witnessing his rapper pals utterly turn on him. That's the terrible reality that people hardly ever talk about honestly. Everyone says they are loyal when you are at the top. However, most people vanish right away after falling when they catch a big case or when the federal government begins an investigation. Many of the same rappers who were boldly claiming F membership, publishing images of themselves with Durk all the time, and directly profiting from his cosigns and business contacts have now stopped talking altogether. They no longer desire that association. They don't want their connections with him to be investigated by federal officials. As Durk sits there, he has this harsh realization about who is truly loyal and who is just taking advantage of the situation. And although Durk is no longer able to protect them, those who were truly faithful, like Bew, are dying in these streets. The whole view. Let's take a closer look at what's actually happening here. This goes beyond the death of a single individual. This is about the never-ending cycle of allegiance, violence, and repercussions that has been methodically ruining Chicago for many years. Loyalty was the cornerstone of Lil Durk's entire enterprise. TF was meant to stand for a brotherhood and family in which everyone looked out for one another. Durk was able to effectively defend his people while he was also making money and controlling resources. He may prevent them from going out on the street. He might offer opportunities that did not necessitate criminal behavior or violence. However, everyone instantly went back to survival mode the moment he was jailed and the money stopped coming in. In Chicago, survival mode usually entails going back to street operations. It entails taking chances that you would otherwise avoid. It entails opening yourself up to adversaries who are aware of your presence. After the F money entirely dried up, THF Bayzoo tried to survive and ended up dying. He became an Islamic convert. He was making a concerted effort to change his life. He was sincerely attempting to improve. But sometimes you feel like you have no choice but to go back to what you know when you have bills that need to be paid and no legitimate income. And family, it is the unavoidable trap. You're never really free on the streets. Even if you depart, even if you achieve some success, the instant that achievement fades, you're immediately back where you started. And because you're now a much larger target with more adversaries observing, coming back is often riskier than never leaving. This is the materialization of Lil Durk's worst nightmare in particular. In federal court, he is battling for his life, facing the real prospect of never being free again. Additionally, his Day One buddies are dying in the same streets he has dedicated his professional life to helping people escape from while he is incarcerated. The truth about loyalty. In this street life, let me be completely honest about loyalty. Bew's devotion to F and Lil Durk was unquestionable. Bayzoo remained steadfast when Durk was arrested on those murder charges for more serious offenses while everyone else was backing off. When it wasn't safe, he posted "Free Durk." Until the very end, he stood in for F. And what did he get from his unflinching loyalty? In a junkyard, it resulted to his death. Due of his imprisonment, Lil Durk was unable to defend Bayzoo. The F money that could have kept Bayzoo out of Chicago was gone. Overnight, the empire that was meant to support the family fell apart. If the system could destroy it in a day, then what was all that loyalty for? Loyalty is crucial, as the streets will tell you. That genuine is aware of the real. They won't warn you, though, that if you're faithful, your mother might arrange your funeral before you turn 35. The passing of THF Bayzoo serves as yet another harsh reminder of Lil Durk's losses. His blood brother was killed in 2021. His best buddy, King Von, was killed in 2020. And more murders have occurred over the years. He may never be free again. His empire may be in ruins, and his loved ones are dying while he sits in a cell unable to do anything to save them. Will THF take revenge for Bayzoo's passing? Will there be more violence as a result of this? Chicago's history tells us the answer already. The heartbreaking part is that, when does it stop? That's the actual question. When do people decide that allegiance to the streets isn't worth dying for?